I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about the business aspects of being a freelancer. So can you speak a little bit on the business side of what you do in terms of invoices, payments, how do you negotiate pay, and that whole aspect of it?
Yeah, I guess I'll talk about negotiating pay first because I mean, to be entirely transparent, I am literally like I'm in the middle of learning how to do that right now, especially as a young person in this industry. It's really hard as a young person in this industry because, as I said earlier, you feel like you want to say yes to a lot of projects right away. And I will tell you right off the bat that I did a lot of writing for free when I first started freelancing, or a lot of writing for not a whole lot of money at all. And that sucked. It was not fun at all. um, but there really at the time was no other way for me to build a portfolio if I didn't. And now fortunately I'm in a place where I don't have to accept lower paying work or free work as much. um, but that takes a while. It does take a little while. That's kind of an unfortunate reality of that. And in terms of negotiating pay, especially too as a young woman in this industry, it can be hard to ask for more pay because you feel like you really want that job, you want that gig, and you feel like it's worth it to just say yes to that if it means that you get the job, even though you know that that pay rate's a little low. And unfortunately, freelancing in and of itself is not a super lucrative business, like just flat out. Um, but as long as you can kind of, be aware of what people are offering you and be able to compare a little bit between different places, what they're offering you, and not being afraid to think about, okay, how much time is this project going to actually take me? How much effort am I going to actually put into this? How many hours this is actually going to take me? And is the amount of money that they're offering me going to be worth it in the long run? Because if the answer is yes, then that's great. But if the answer is no, and you think, I've got 8 other projects I really should be working on instead, then you should probably reconsider that idea. But I will just say right off the bat that I myself am still learning how to negotiate pay. It is very hard when you were young in this industry. But in terms of the people who do pay me right now, I, it goes back to just that idea of being flexible and reasonable and personable and not, freaking out over people who haven't paid you. The reality is that there are a lot of publications and people in this industry who are going to take ages to pay you. I mean, I hear horror stories all the time about people who wait years for payments from publications. It's true. And I've been very fortunate to work for people who are pretty good about paying me on time. But, the art of the follow-up email is something that you have to get really good at in this industry. And there's nothing wrong with following up with somebody who owes you money and just being really nice about it and being like, hey, I just noticed that I haven't received payment yet for X, Y, or Z piece. Let me know if there's anything else you need from me on my end in terms of like a Venmo or whatever. Let me know. Thanks. Just being really, as I say, reasonable and flexible and understanding about it too. People tend to want to pay those people more than the people who don't write emails like that, if that makes sense. So yeah, and again, same thing with deadlines, just making notes of who owes you what money and how long it's been and that kind of thing is really helpful. Make little reminders on your calendar, even if that's helpful, just to keep on top of those numbers. Because the last thing you want to do is like, you reach the end of the year and you're like, oh, so-and-so owes me $500. Where did that go?
Right. All very good points. That's why I wanted to ask you about the business part of this too, because as a lot of creatives, we're creative and that's what we want to do and focus on the creative, but then there's a whole business aspect of it that must be taken seriously. And like you said, it's negotiating pay, keeping track of the invoices, keeping track of who's paid you, who owes you money, things like that, being highly organized because it's a business. This is how you're going to sustain this, right? So, but I do have an interesting question though. Obviously, I mean, we don't want students, and let's see what you have to say about this. Obviously the business aspect of it should not be the driving force or should not take over the creative and the enjoyment side of what you're doing as a freelancer, correct?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. Yeah. I don't think that anybody, I don't know anyone in this industry who has gotten in it for the money. Like that's not why we're here. And I would certainly say that, at least for me, speaking personally, I find that the enjoyment that I get and the fun that I have doing what I do, the like excitement that I feel when I have a new piece out or a piece goes really well and I have a really good interview or whatever, that always outweighs anything else.
I do want to ask you just a few more questions. Do you feel like you are a bit of an entrepreneur because of the entire, obviously, this whole business aspect and you managing your own time and yourself as a talent?
Yeah, no, that's a good way of putting it. I definitely feel, I'm responsible for crafting like my reputation and my identity as, a writer, as a journalist. I don't necessarily, I don't have a specific publication to back myself up and be like, oh, I'm Allison from such and such. Like, I'm just Allison, I'm a freelancer. And so, my reputation as a writer, as a a contractor, as all of those things is really important, because I really want people to be able to, when they see my byline somewhere or my name pops up on their email inbox, I want them to say like, oh yeah, like she's reliable, she does good work, she does her research, she has, she can bring her A game to the table. She's done the work before, and I want people to, um, think about that when my name comes up, because a lot of working in this industry is putting your name out there. So I definitely feel that that's true.
Yeah, definitely, the reputation, that's going to be very important. Yeah, word of mouth, like that's how you're going to be suggested and then recommended for other gigs and opportunities.